I'm Chris Carter from the Locked On Steelers podcast, and this is your Locked On Now update as the Steelers win this one 13-10, Acrisure Stadium, getting the win on Christmas Eve against the Las Vegas Raiders. They're now 7-8 and still keeping those playoff hopes alive. We'll get into that later, but it was a big night from a lot of different parties, especially the Steelers defense. After giving up a touchdown on the opening drive, they were able to hold the Raiders to 3 points for the rest of the game, and that's with weapons like the NFL's leading rusher, Josh Jacobs, who they limited to 44 yards on 15 carries. That's less than 3 yards per rush. The Steelers' run defense coming up big in this game. They also limited Davante Adams, 2 catches on 9 targets for 15 yards, one of the best receivers in football, virtually taken out of the game here. The Steelers deserve a lot of commendations for their efforts on defense. They get 3 interceptions, Minkah Fitzpatrick, Arthur Maulet, and a huge one from Cam Sutton late in the game that basically sealed the game for the Steelers. But man, gotta say a lot of things about how they did across the board. Cam Heyward talking on the Steelers podium about making the Raiders one-dimensional, and they did that. The Raiders came in with a leading rusher in the NFL, and like I said all week long on the Locked On Steelers podcast, the key to this game was taking away Josh Jacobs. You do that, you give yourself that much more of a chance to win. And yes, the offense was not good for most of tonight. They were falling short. Special teams, Chris Boswell missed 2 field goals that were crucial. Either one of them really could have helped the Steelers in the end, but the Steelers defense kept rising to the occasion. Derek Carr, 16 of 30, sacked 3 times, throws 3 interceptions. What a response by this defense in a game that the Steelers absolutely had to have if they wanted to have their chance at the playoffs still be alive after tonight. It's Christmas here. We're at Acrisure Stadium still, but want to commend them, but also the guts of Kenny Pickett to come up with the huge game-winning touchdown drive at the end of the game. And it wasn't a great game for Kenny Pickett. He finished 26 of 39, 244 yards, an interception that was costly in the second half, but he kept his focus, as did the rest of the offense. George Pickens gets the winning touchdown catch. Pat Freiermuth, 7 catches on 8 targets for 66 yards. He was huge in a lot of ways, moving the sticks for the Steelers. Najee Harris, 53 yards on 16 carries. Not spectacular, but tack on 42 yards on 6 catches of 9 targets. He was huge in the small moments, and that's what the Steelers needed out of their guys, finding ways to keep drives alive, keep things going, and I think that was a big part of the Steelers getting the win. And the truth is, the clutch factor for the Steelers coming in this game, you had Kenny Pickett holding in there. I think he was 7 of 9 on his last drive to throw the touchdown, and you heard the emotion from the Steelers about talking about Franco Harris and doing it to honor the great Steeler who passed away Wednesday, just 3 days before the stadium or the Steelers were going to retire his jersey right on that field behind me. There was so much drama going on for this team, and they all wore 32 jerseys to the game. And if you went back into the locker room, and you'll see this in the full Locked On Steelers podcast, a lot of them wearing 32 jerseys. It was part of the uniform. Cam Heyward came out of the tunnel tonight carrying the 32 flag, running onto the field. It was truly a spectacle for the Steelers to honor the great running back Franco Harris. But they knew they had to get it done tonight in the present, and they did in a big way. Again, a huge defensive performance, talking to Minkah Fitzpatrick, Cam Sutton, and what the defense tried to do to limit Davante Adams. They said there were different looks here, but it came down to execution. The same thing was said by Alex Highsmith when I got to talk to him after the game about stuffing the run with Josh Jacobs. This was an inspiring win for the Steelers, and I think a growing win on both sides of the ball. Now, the defense, after the disappointing run defense against the Baltimore Ravens, last week against the Panthers, they only allowed 21 yards in the ground. This week, they only allowed 58 yards to Jacobs and Carr, but again, 44 of those yards were to Jacobs, who was the NFL's leading rusher and still is coming out of today, but 2.9 yards per carry for him. He was supposed to dominate the Steelers, and he did not. Huge kudos go to Cam Heyward, who had a spectacular night. He was the one that led the charge about making them one-dimensional. Larry Ogunjobi, big night. DeMarvin Leal, I also thought, had a really good game. It was a really good game across the board. Lots more to break down. We'll do that on the Locked On Steelers podcast with the full episode. But until then, Merry Christmas, everyone. Keep enjoying the Locked On Steelers podcast. Again, I'm your host, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. Check out the Locked On On Steelers podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, and YouTube. I'll have the full episode out on later tonight, early going into Christmas. So if you're enjoying this on Christmas, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to everyone. If you're enjoying this after Christmas, don't worry, we'll have more full episodes coming all week long. Get him Chris Carter from Acrisure Stadium. Happy Holidays, everyone.